I was.
Try to do it before you started.
Oh, I just noticed this says Booze and Brews
Yeah.
Pub Brawl.
I was gonna. Cancel that for
That's my bad.
Oh, that's good.
advocating a brawl.
I like that.
Extra officers.
Yeah.
My apologies.
Rest assured, the permit says crawl, everyone.
Okay, it's 7 o'clock. I'm gonna call the Village New Glarus Board meeting to order. I'd look for an approval of the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
Favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 3, public appearances. Want to hear from, you want to speak?
I just want to say that today is October 1st. This was to be the deadline for announcing awards of the grant. However, it will be early October now, so we will keep you all posted. We continue to do things like the environmental review. Last week we did interviews of architects. So we're moving along, but we haven't done it yet, so.
Okay, Amy, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, item 4, approval of the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda. Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
For the brawl. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 5, new business. Consideration discussion of ordinance 2413, annexing lands from the town of New Glarus to the village of New Glarus. Lauren?
Yeah, so this is the handout. There are a few small changes to this ordinance. But through the site plan review process for the brewery expansion project, it was determined that some additional land needed to be annexed into the village so that the entire site is included, to avoid situations where, you know, a portion is in the town and there's a police call there, and just making sure everything is all in one. And Catherine May with the breweries here, if you guys have questions on that as well, or Catherine, I don't know if you wanted to add anything to it.
So we're just approving the ordinance, correct?
Correct,
And this,
which approves the annexation.
which does approve the annexation. Okay.
I move to approve ordinance number 2413. Second.
Favor say, is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item B, consideration discussion application for land consolidation by a certified survey map at 2400 Highway 69.
This is the other handout, had a few changes since the packet went out. This was reviewed and recommended for approval by the Plan Commission. Since then, we did a technical review. Our engineers reviewed it and just gave a couple comments and worked with the brewery's engineer to make some changes, but now it's ready to go. This is just consolidating some land together. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
So what do we move to approve?
The application for
Land consolidation.
by certified survey.
I so move that.
Second, it's just me and you.
Yeah, you guys are on a roll here.
Okay, any further discussion?
No.
Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item C, consideration discussion total inspection services LLC for 2425 agreement to provide building inspection services. It's on page 25.
This is an updated contract. So Scott is our building inspector. He works with Total Inspection Services LLC, which is also Mike Finley. But Scott is our main contact for building inspection. The main thing to highlight is that there are some fee increases with this contract. You'll see on page 28. Has the new and updated rate sheet. One thing to note is that each time somebody pays a building permit fee, 10% of that goes back to the village for administration. So really, there's no cost to us, for building inspection. Actually, a really nice model for us. The only way we're paying our building inspector is through these, building inspection fees.
Where did the 10% come from?
That's their
I mean,
standard,
history, right?
that's their standard rate.
Right, does it make any sense?
That's what they, total inspection charges.
Understand that, doesn't, that's the fee that we get, this is 10%. What do we do? That's what I'm interested in.
Well, we collect all of the applications and payments at our front desk and coordinate when people call in and ask
And how much
for,
are total fees?
It's based
How
on-
much we get paid.
It just,
It's
it
based on the,
depends on the building permits that he issues.
yeah,
I understand that, how much did we get paid this year?
You
you
can
have to look at the budget.
Yeah, you can actually look in the budget, the actuals.
Roughly.
Have to look. I don't know off the top of my head.
You're thinking 10% is not enough or too much?
My experience is that these things that we charge for, we rarely charge what our costs are.
Gotcha.
So I mentioned this to Scott when we were talking about the contract and he
I don't
said,
want to take money out of Scott,
right,
which if we raised this 15%, that takes it out of Scott.
yeah, that's what I'm getting at. So I talked to Scott about this and I said, are there other communities that do different percentage points? He said, yes, but they normally increase the fees additionally.
Exactly,
So that's an option.
right, and that, I think that's what we ought to do.
Are
He's probably gonna
administrative
change it
fees
forever.
being covered by that 10%?
Kind of hard to know.
Yeah,
We don't
On
really
a small
track our
project,
time.
no, but on where we're making $10,000, yeah. I mean, because we facilitate all the payments and all the coordination, like Lauren said, we also do all the historical record keeping, like in the logs and whatnot. But the nice thing for us, I mean, and we stick to our guns about this, is if somebody calls about anything potentially related to building or inspection or anything, we don't even try to answer their question. We give them deal with it.
Yeah, but picking up the phone
Yes, but
and explaining why you can't do it and then trying to find.
But to put this in perspective, we spend way more time answering garbage questions and we pay a lot of money for garbage.
Fair enough, but that doesn't change the fact.
I don't think this is a situation where we're losing our butts in terms of time. I just think I asked one the same thing. I'm like, can we look at, keeping more of that percentage? But is it worth going through that fee raise for everything just to pretty much get the same?
When's the last
How's
time
that
you
for
raised
us?
fees?
oh my gosh, it's been 10.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
I will say, the other thing I'll mention too is when you increase building permit fees, you get less
Mhm.
people applying for building permits. Like there is
You mean just doing things and not applying for permits?
Right.
yes, there's
I
a
can't-
diminishing
I can't believe
return
that,
on that.
Laura.
You'd be surprised.
Well, you're talking about 3, 4, 5,000 on a $500,000 project and you move it to 6,000. That is how people don't make their decisions on the basis of what is the fee gonna be from the village.
It's not the big projects, it's the small projects.
Right. We don't make our bread and butter on these huge projects because New Glarus doesn't have room for huge projects right now. I mean, we're not pulling building permits for all these new houses. We're pulling building permits for new remodel, new fence, new water, something. Yeah. That's the majority that we'll see. Decks, shed, little
So
storage.
how do we resolve this without having to, I mean, you got a lot on your plates right now. I just think this kind of thing is where we're this year, because we've had some increases. We're not quite so tight on the budget. If this was last year, we'd be pulling our hair out. So my guess is, on an ongoing basis, this is gonna be the kind of thing where we've got to figure out how to make a nickel work. It doesn't seem like much, but you accumulate these things and you get some significant money.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, it's based off the project and it's 10% of the project?
Correct.
It's 10% of the fee.
The project
So
fee,
if it's
yeah.
50
yeah.
bucks, it's 5.
Okay, so if somebody's doing a fence,
And it's $1,000.
It depends how big of a, yeah, it's truly project to project.
so I would say that I would agree that at some point, if it's not now, we need to possibly raise it up. We haven't raised it to 10%.
Well, so approving it as is would raise the cost, correct, Lauren?
Yes,
Um,
it would increase the rates. but we're still only getting 10% under this model.
So they're higher rates.
Right.
Our
Yeah,
percentage stays.
That's raised the
Right.
rates, so if it goes from $100 up to 150 instead of,
$10.
and we're gonna get 50.
Right.
Yeah.
So we should see a little
So
bit of a
raising the
revenue
rates
bump there.
up.
Okay.
It should reflect a little more money back to us.
Yep. We did this reason, oh, I know, it's with the money that we got from the fees that we get out of the motels.
Rental tax, yeah, and we did a pretty big fee schedule increase
We
last
changed our
year.
rate there.
Yep, so that's why you're not gonna see a ton of fee changes this year, just because we did do a lot last year. So we're trying to,
Pretend it didn't happen.
well, no, we're just trying to be mindful of the impact that it has on our residents, so.
Okay. I suppress my,
So I need a, what do we need?
We need a motion to
approve the
accept the,
agreement,
or
yeah.
approve the agreement.
A motion to accept the inspection services agreement.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
I move that by next June, we have a reevaluation of the fees.
Okay,
Is that enough time? I mean, I don't want to pressure, but when it's a convenient time to do it.
When you say fees, you mean all village fees?
No, just the construction side of it.
building inspection fees.
So, well, this this contract would lock us in, what you just approved, locks us in until this time next year, correct? So we couldn't change anything until after that.
You get it done, and then when we're doing next year's budget, we arrive at a new number.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, item D, consideration discussion amendment to erosion.
Yeah, I think you made a motion.
Oh,
Oh, you need a second
The motion was
To
to,
reevaluate the.
reevaluate.
fees,
I think we'll do that anyways.
June next year.
Yeah, we typically look at our fees, but not usually that early. Usually we're doing it.
so I made a motion, is there a second?
yeah, I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Consideration discussion amendment to erosion control and stormwater management requirements, page 34.
Through 90.
Yeah, this is a longer one.
I got 34.
Through 90. It's
Oh,
all-
through 90.
Yeah,
I thought you said
it's all-
39.
No, it's all-
Yeah, I know. I went through it all.
So page 34 has a summary of the recommended changes to our erosion control and stormwater management requirements. This is mainly to just get it updated and modernized with current best practices for stormwater management. This was completed by our stormwater engineer at Strand. Hopefully you don't have any very specific stormwater questions because I won't be able to answer them, but happy to pass them along.
So-
Let's go ahead.
Was the Strand, opinion, that we were really outdated in our,
Yes, we haven't updated this in a while.
Did we make?
2006, it
Yeah.
looks like.
Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah. I'm not sure any of us would have given any great thought to this until last week in North Carolina,
Mm-hmm.
right? And admittedly, we are tending to our sewer and our wastewater facilities. That's a good thing. But probably the one thing that came out of all that was there's a lot that's unpredictable, but when it comes, it really comes. And we have thought about all this land this way towards the river as being not a problem. You know, because we fixed up the sewer lines and all that kind of stuff. There was a time when it was a problem. There was a time when this building over here would fill up the basement because we had no adequate way of taking the water out of this thing. So when you're looking at whatever these things are, ought to be expanded.
there are new requirements. of
Yep, so
runoff.
this is modernizing our stormwater management practices. In addition, we have a floodplain ordinance that goes more in depth into floodplain regulations, and that is pretty, best practices as well. I've chatted with our engineers about that, and they're pretty, what would be recommended in order to kind of prevent, properties being developed in the floodplain and making sure you're doing flood analyses when you're doing things in floodplain and things like that. And a lot of that gets run through the DNR as well, so.
The only thing that caught my attention was, a wet detention basin that says generally in the lakes is highly discouraged in the village due to warming. So do we have a detention basin? Where has it got a sign on it? How do I know?
So, what's normally recommended now are dry detention basins.
Yeah.
So the school, for example, is building a dry detention basin both at the elementary school and I think at the athletic complex as well. I could be wrong. So I don't know if we have any wet.
Well, either one.
Scott is
I mean, is
maybe saying no.
the distance between Rudd, not Rudd, Troutman, is it who has the car repair thing?
RPM?
Yeah, between that and the hardware store, is that a dry basin there?
Oh, you mean?
It goes like
So
this.
Judge,
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
what this is supposed to look like.
Yeah.
I
that,
don't know what you're talking about.
No.
there's that land between the hardware store and Judd's, but that,
It goes down a little.
I think technically that's supposed to be wetlands, but Jerry kept mowing it, and now it's,
Shocking.
huh? Now it's pretty much considered, I mean, I think you could,
It is until.
it might be able to be buildable, actually,
Yeah.
but
There's a lot of Jack Flags.
at Jack Link's, yeah. Scott, did you have something to add?
No, I'm just trying to pay attention.
Well, you don't have to sit in the back row, you can move up one and get,
We can get, we can get you a little table like Jeff.
as long as you can hear everything, Scott, that's fine.
Luckily, hurricanes don't quite make it to Wisconsin yet.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
My sister and her husband are with power still for the next 4 days, and they're in South Carolina.
Oh, yeah.
But they chose to move there, so I. Did we do anything with Sally Nielsen's deal?
It's complete. We did do the work there.
The clay thing and everything?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, if you go by there, there's a
I don't
stone wall around it, and it's
Cool.
built up, there's grass growing on it.
Not stone.
Oh, they-
They're sandbags.
Oh, sandbags, I guess
Yeah.
I didn't look very close.
Man, I don't leave my house much.
What does the county do? Do they have
For-
similar kind of requirement?
They have their own requirements, yes.
Are they the same as ours?
I'm not
Probably it's the same, right?
familiar. Anything in the village would fall under village jurisdiction.
I'm not talking about jurisdiction, I'm
Yeah.
talking about the quality or the details. Are we where the county is?
I think we're
Okay,
at
where
or
we are.
above the county. I think we are at or above the county in terms of regulations, would be my guess.
And I'm not so sure that it isn't more township regulated than the county.
Yeah, except Narveson's got roads, and stuff like that he has to manage all the time.
Yeah.
I have no idea what to do about this other than to pass it, but it just strikes me after this last couple of weeks, this is gonna be the kind of stuff that haunts us.
Yeah, well, passing this is definitely a step in the right direction for making sure we prevent,
It's
Damage.
updated,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
And it's created or written by a stormwater expert, so.
Okay.
And I live on a hill, so.
It's interesting.
I've
though,
got walls
Peter,
in that house, so.
Did you,
Well, we see this guy down on Second Avenue who's got sandbags and berms around their house,
That's what we're talking
right?
about. Yeah.
I mean, we're not messing around here.
it says here that dry detention bases are less effective at removing pollutants because the stormwater passes through quickly, where wet detention bases are more native wetland plant life, and they're more effective at removing pollutants. But then again, they also attract,
Well, you can see one right out of the hospital. I mean, the clinic,
yeah,
that's wet
right.
right there.
But I mean, I'm just saying that
Okay. So move to approve the Village of New Glarus erosion control and storm water management standards update.
Second.
I can't, I'm sorry, I keep trying.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries.
Thanks for the good response.
Okay, here we go. Item E, consideration discussion 2025 budget workshop number 1,
All right. I
starting
have
on 103.
a presentation for you all,
Okay.
which will hopefully walk you through the memo and extra documents. Please feel free to stop me at any point if there are questions. So it's kind of the idea of a workshop is really to have an informal-ish discussion on the budget and give you guys an opportunity to ask questions and, you know, understand it, because it is pretty complex and big, but when you break it down, it's not too bad. So, okay. So just as a reminder, here's where we've been. Back in May, the village board approved the timeline and procedures for the budget. In June, Kelsey sent out financial information and salary and benefit figures to our department heads to start putting together their budgets. In July/August, we started meeting with department heads and other village funded entities to work through their budgets. I think this is a really important piece of this, just so you know, these budgets are not just me and Kelsey putting numbers to a page. This is developed by a lot of our staff working together. Last month, we had Public Works, Public Safety Committee and Parks and Rec Committee, and I believe the library board also reviewed budget last month, I think. And so now we are doing 2 budget workshops in October for a hopeful adoption in November. Okay, so to start off, I want to just go over 2024 budget results because I think this is an important piece to this. I'll start out with the biggest news, which is we have a projected surplus of $212,000. So where do we get that number? Well, we budgeted about 1.8 million in revenue, and we are projecting our revenue at around 1.9 million for a total surplus of revenue of 149,426. For expenses, we budgeted again 1.8-ish million, and we're projecting a 1.76 million in projected expenses. So we're under budget. We're predicting about 62,771. I have this note on the bottom here. This does not include the $48,000 that we budgeted in surplus applied to last year's budget. So just keep that in mind. We had to budget 48,000 in surplus to balance the budget last year, and that does not even include this. In this, does that make sense? The surplus.
If you didn't include it, it would be 262.
Right.
Correct. Yep.
Basically, staff did a really, really good job of keeping expenses in check, knowing it was a tight budget year, and a really good job on the revenue side.
that why
Obviously,
you-
some of that revenue, a lot of that revenue was interest. We made really good
Yep,
interest.
I have that on the next page
Yeah,
here.
sorry to jump. Yeah,
No.
but I just want to note that like when these conversations happen here, they do trickle down. And I do think, especially at the department head level, at least I can speak. I mean, we are mindful of most of us of what we're spending. And we really try to keep that in check.
Is that why it's so cold in here?
Yes.
It's hot in here, are you kidding?
I know, it's wear double.
I'm gonna like wear sleeves of shirts and
Well, today.
I'm
it is.
sweating right now.
Well, they're not turning the AC on.
Anyway, does that include that 23 grand we had to spend for the fire department?
Yes.
Mhm.
Really?
Because we cut a whole lot of other departments
Oh,
to make that happen.
last year.
We sure
What do
did.
we get to do with that surplus?
That's up to the board.
Yep.
Why we're here.
So Kelsey is exactly right. All of our staff are very tight with their budgets, and that is a large reason why we, often have surpluses at the end of the year. But the major reasons in addition to that, so why is revenue so high? We budgeted $15,000 for interest, and we're projected at $177,000 in interest, which is a very nice year in interest. But keep in mind, it's not always that way. We've had much lower years, so it's very hard to predict. Why are expenses so low? Just a couple of reasons. Obviously, we are still trying to hire a 5th police officer, so that position has been vacant all year. We've had some vacancies in public works as well this year. And it's also been a lighter snow year, so we've had a little bit less in snow expenses. But keep in mind, the year's not over and snow is likely still coming, so we get a huge snow in November and December, that might go back up.
Can I just ask, how do we go from 15,000 in interest to 177,000?
We budget very conservatively.
Because there are years where that 15,000 is accurate. So I know that looks crazy when you see it on paper, but what look even crazier is if we budgeted $170,000 of interest revenue and then only made 15, you know what I mean?
That's a huge difference though.
Yeah.
I mean,
But interest rates are already going back down. The whole
Right.
point of that is
Right.
to not get sucked into thinking that the
Exactly.
life is normal.
exactly.
Yeah, we don't
Yeah,
wanna.
because not too long ago, like I said, it was at 15,000.
Or less.
Or less.
But
Yeah.
you guys just jumped in on the high interest. I mean, we got in on time to get that. It's not gonna happen.
Well, a lot of this just comes from our local government investment pool.
Yeah,
that we're in.
yeah. This isn't
Yeah.
CD stuff. This
This
is
is your investment.
This is just
Yeah.
what we are making on our bank accounts every month.
Awesome.
Okay.
So you don't account for the CD interest until maturity.
Nope, I account for it anytime the bank adds the interest in, so I think it's like depending on how long the CD is, I think it was like every 3 months. And then you see that on your monthly financials, I know.
But we're not including it as revenue.
No, because that's not general fund money.
That's not.
That's not, the CDs aren't general fund money, it's reserve money that we use for those CDs.
Yeah, but
Mhm.
I hate that.
No.
I want that money. Sorry.
Okay, can I move on?
Yeah.
Good, okay. Property tax levy, so that it accounts for 39% of our general fund revenue. It's impacted by state imposed levy limits, which is based on net new construction. Our net new construction number this year was 1.77%. That is up from last year, which was 1.01. Sorry, this should say 2023 was 1.01%. So our allowable levy increase this year, which does not include debt, is 20,327.
Woo! Everybody, come on.
Last year it was 10,000 or 11,000, so that's a nice increase.
Okay, I don't understand.
Yeah.
So tax levy went up by $1,000 from 24 to 25, 1772 to 1773.
Yes.
But the increase went up 20,000. I don't understand what you
Yeah.
said there.
So this is a weird year because they shifted property tax levy dollars. So last year we collected personal property taxes, that was called?
Yep.
And it would come through the levy, so it would be included in that number that you're referencing. This year, they're splitting it out and they're including it as state aid. So my 20,000 number includes that state aid number, but really, if we were taking it out, it'd only be $7,000.
So really doesn't have anything to do with they're two, I mean, you keep them separate for a reason. They're not correlated.
Yeah, I wasn't sure exactly how to communicate it to the
I-
board because it's kind of
I
a
see your problem. I just
different-
want to make sure that,
Yeah.
okay, got it.
So total levy limit without debt service is about $1 million. Total levy limit with debt service is 1.7 million.
And that is just for the village. That obviously does not include the other taxing jurisdictions.
Just because I think it's interesting, here is our history on net new construction from 2017 to 2024. You'll see it going up and down. 2018 was a good year, I guess, but we've usually been fairly low. And then I also included some other communities just for comparison. Belleville had 1.88%, but that was really low for them. They're normally much higher. City of Verona is 5.3%, City of Monroe, 0.26%. And then Town of New Glarus notably is higher than us at 2.17%.
So where do you get the 2.17? Oh, town.
Yes.
Got it, sorry.
Yep, we're at that
Yeah, yeah,
1.7, yeah. Okay,
Can't believe that, Bill.
Where does the percentage come from?
I know, that's odd.
it looks at equalized value. So the entire value of the village and how much it increased from year to year. Okay, general fund. So just as an overview, it includes administration, public works, public safety, and parks and rec. General fund accounts for 40% of our property tax distribution. And so the remaining goes to waste management. So that's our Pelletary trash pickup and recycling pickup. It goes to library, it goes to chalet, and it goes to debt service. So as of now, revenue and expenditures are budgeted at $1.8 million, which is about $4,000 increase, and we are currently balanced. Round of applause. So what does that include? It includes a 3% wage increase for all employees. It includes an 11% increase in health insurance. Dental insurance remained the same. It includes some cuts in how we're budgeting for some wage and benefits due to one police officer being on military leave and our public works director who is only budgeted at 7 months of health insurance due to previous coverage. I'll also add, so we still have the vacant police officer budgeted. That's $32 an hour with a family plan. I noted the fire district budget request is 91,000. I had some historical numbers there. So last year it was 93,000, but in 23 it was 69,000. So you'll see that large increase that we talked about at the last meeting. The reason why this budget year wasn't as bad as we thought, there's two main, there's many factors driving this, but two big ones is shared revenue increased by $5,000 for a total of 326. And I noted in the memo that actually we found an additional 17,000 this year in shared revenue due to utility aid being paid to the town of New Glarus on accident. It should have been paid to the village. So actually this year we're getting $17,000 more, and next year and moving forward we'll get $17,000 more.
When did that accidentally happen?
They used to own the land and the state didn't
Know that?
note the annexation for the substation.
Another awesome increase is our transportation aid increased by $22,000 for a total of $171,000. That's determined by a 6-year rolling average of any road improvements the village is doing. So that this year it's including the project we did last year. But it's also
2019,
including
22,
2019.
23, yeah.
Yeah. So
You'll remember that number 2 years ago was like 130. I mean, that was a rough year. We've definitely came up. So.
yeah,
That's why we gotta keep doing. road
Well,
projects.
that's exactly why. So that's why the every other year thing is a really good plan in terms of road projects or close to that, because you have 1 year fall off, but you had 1 year back on. It's just like a consistent rolling thing.
And Highway 69 does not count for us, right?
No.
And there, we are doing, or Highway 69 is getting up this year.
No.
Not this year,
It won't be
no.
till next-
26?
Maybe even 26,
Yeah.
from what I've been told.
From
that's only, south.
I can't recall, how has shared revenue looked like for the last 4 years back?
We got a huge shared revenue increase last year, because the governor, state legislature signed in an increase for municipalities to get more of that state revenue.
Now we get a penny of
Yep.
sales tax, so
Yep.
anytime sales tax increases, we're getting increases,
Yep.
which is nice. Before, it's like up to them however much they wanted to give.
Okay, because I know it. just
Yeah.
has been-
Yep.
Okay.
In this.
Yeah,
thing-
it's still nothing to write home about.
This thing you give us, this is shared revenue here, less revenue other than property tax that's shared.
I'd have to look at what you're.
No, that would be any other revenue in the general fund, so everything from tickets to pool admissions to interest to, I mean, everything besides general property tax. Shared revenue would be included in that, yes, but it's all general fund revenue outside of property tax.
And then transportation it looks a lot better than it used to. I mean, it was.
And that's the street,
Right.
that was the street project. That's
Yeah.
when we had that break in 2020 and 2021, that really hurt us.
That, yeah, that was.
Mhm.
not
Now
good.
it's back up again,
Yeah.
which is great.
Looks better.
And finally, to balance the budget, I have applied 7,762 to balance the budget. I think I just said that. That is much less than we applied last year, which is great. We applied around 48,000 last year. So if the village board does not want to apply surplus, we can talk about what cuts we need to make to not do that. But I think that is well within a conservative amount to apply.
So you're saying that 7,700 comes off of the 212?
Correct.
Okay.
So does that include the 23,000 with the fire department?
Yes.
Because right now we have to pay that this year until we get this loan thing sorted out or what?
The village board can decide whatever you want to do, but I have included it in the budget numbers.
And I still think it's important to remember this year that even though the budget conversation this year is a little bit easier than maybe we expected it to be in terms of numbers, it's still really important to really think about those individual decisions and approving these, because that doesn't, like in terms of the fire department or in terms of any of the departments, we want to make sure that we have things in line. So when it comes to those hard budget years, we're not in this format of just like approving things and not really looking at them, because I think that's what happened previously is, especially with the fire district, and everything going on there. So I still think it's important to remember that although this year's a little bit easier, we also need to make sure that
Okay.
we're staying in line conservatively with numbers going forward, if that makes sense.
Are we not pushing back on the fire district budget at
It's
all?
totally up to you guys.
They're pretty conservative about stuff, from the two that I've looked at.
We missed you at the last meeting.
Yeah, you were here when
Oh, well.
There's a lot of
I think I want you to know that I prioritize my wedding anniversary for you. Well, don't even bring this up.
well, we skipped it.
Yeah,
There's,
I mean, when you consider the fact that we are paying like $8 an hour
yeah,
for compensation, it's just a.
that's not even it. It's the way.
The rest of the things are pretty tight. Not perfect, but pretty tight.
So where do we go from here then with the fire budget? I mean, you said it's up top. What do we move on?
The other option of the 23,000 per year for the next 4 years is to take out our loan to cover it, just not our annual budget,
And just pay it all.
and then just pay it all at once. So that's one of the things.
Yes, yeah.
Right.
I think most of this increase is compensation.
Yeah, it wouldn't be the
Because
full
we were paying
$23.
$6, but not withholding anything from it, we weren't treating it as though it was a typical wage with a,
W2.
Yeah, we heard all
Right,
about it.
right? So that was a big deal to
Yeah.
get them to shift to that and get them legal.
Yeah.
But that's also the bulk of the increase is getting them legal.
And it's the
These
rental radio.
Still don't understand why they have to do that. So that must have been really hard for you, so good job.
But that happened
Well-
a number of years ago when we did that.
No, last year.
Just
Was it only last year? It was like 2 years ago. Okay.
Well, you can understand,
Yeah.
you guys are contributing, I mean, in a mammoth sort of way.
Right, we got this.
And now I gotta pay tax,
Like every.
Right, but the
Yeah.
problem is, the Social security tax, they're not exempt from that.
Okay,
Shall we move on?
Yeah.
So like Kelsey and I were just discussing today, after your guys' packets went out, is the expenditure restraint program. Municipalities, if we limit growth in spending. So New Glarus qualifies next year if our general fund budget doesn't increase more than 4.3%. In the current budget, it's actually set to decrease by about 4,481. Which doesn't leave us a lot of room to increase the next year. So one recommendation we would make is to actually add back in some of those cost savings that so like the police officer and the public works director wage/benefits, which would be around $44,000, and we would balance with surplus, but we would never spend it. It's just to show that we're budgeting more.
Jail for this.
No, our financial advisor at Ellers has said that this is a very, very smart thing to do to me in the past. He's always said that if there is a way to show on paper that you have these expenses, but you're funding them in some other way, whether it was through donations, grants, whatever. But if you can keep them on your spreadsheet to show that they are expenses, that's smart because you have this expenditure restraint program looks back at your budget. It's not like a current thing. So
It just seems like.
it's not,
That was my
So
favorite.
I'm a rule follower, so it's not.
adding that can still be below 4.3.
Yeah.
Yes,
mhm,
it would
yeah,
be about
well
two
below.
point two.
Yep.
But then next year, when we need to add those back in, it's not gonna take up all of that increase.
Yeah.
That's the tricky thing when we have these cost savings in terms of ongoing expenses like wage and benefits. It's really great for the year we have it in, but we can't lose sight of the fact that that following year, it has to be populated back in. And so we don't want to spend that money on something else that also needs to be paid for that following year. You know what I'm saying? We got to keep that placeholder.
So if we do these things, what do we get from this program?
We get, I don't know how much we got
get
this
money.
year.
But how much?
I'd have to look and see what a 60, I'm gonna say it was like 60. I don't know.
It's
I'd
part
have
of
to-
our shared revenue.
Yeah,
package.
yeah, it's part of the shared
Like
revenue.
60,000 or like 6,500?
I think
No.
it's definitely several tens of thousands.
Yeah, I'm honestly, it was like 63. I don't know why that's sticking in my head, but that's what's sticking in my head.
Do we have to make a motion to include that?
If the board is comfortable with it, we would just include that in the
Yeah.
next.
Yeah, it makes
All of this that you're discussing today is not gonna be technically approved until that November 15th meeting when you adopt the budget. So this all today is just discussion to lead us down the path that you wanna go.
Do that.
Sorry, I have another question. So what can we, let's say there's something we want to add to this budget. There's
Mhm.
somewhere that we see that. So is there a certain number that we can't go above?
At 4.3%.
Which is,
So to this, adding the 44th, so it'd be like an 85,000, 95,000
Yeah.
increase. Yeah,
oh, perfect.
Yeah.
But we could go up to that if we needed to and still. qualify
Yeah.
for this. Okay.
yeah.
I'm good.
Is there anything in that 4.3% that could is there anything projected that can jeopardize that 4.3%? I mean, do you have anything outstanding out down the road that you can envision, or are we?
That percent, well, I think that changes.
I'm not sure how they.
I think the percentage changes
Okay,
based on previous, yeah, I'm not an expert on this either. But-
Tied to like.
Yeah,
US Valley or
yeah.
something.
But I will say too, to Jamie's point, this adding the $44,000 back in just on paper, you don't have to, I mean, if you wanna increase the budget by $90,000 elsewhere, you can do that and that would solve this problem too. This was just our idea of A, increasing it, but also B,
Have a
making
place
sure
for
we
it.
have it
Yeah.
in the
So
budget.
that makes.
But if we all have that in our minds that, okay, in 26, we need to budget this, and you wanna do something else with that extra $90,000 to meet this expenditure restraint,
well,
that's up to you.
Nope, that makes total sense.
yeah.
I only want to add 38,000.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I'm just gonna quickly go through the other funds that are,
Sorry.
do you have something?
No. Keep going.
So some of our other property tax funded funds, so the waste management, this is, the majority of the expenses are our contract with Pelletary Waste Systems. We do charge $4 a month for a recycling fee, and that's for curbside recycling pickup. But garbage pickup is paid for with property tax levy. We cannot charge a fee for garbage pickup
And compost.
and compost. So revenue and expenses are budgeted at 190,000. Levied revenue portion is around 140,000.
We didn't find a way to get out of paying the extra 15 grand a year to Green County landfill, did we?
It's only 50, oh, it is.
It's 1,500 a month, or
No, we have
1,200 a
not.
month or something, but yeah. it's like
Yeah,
that,
we
yeah.
gotta look at that.
I have not, but I highly doubt we will get out of it, but I can.
What if they go under? Or get bought out?
They'll still have to maintain that site.
Yep.
Cause
Cause
it's
it's got a bunch
still,
of junk buried there.
No, I,
To maintain,
it's a landfill site
if,
that's,
if we were a member and they get bought out or anything, us, we won't be able to get it now, but if we would have stayed a member, any profit that they made, that would come back to the members. But you're still gonna have to, through the DNR, still gonna have to pay that money every year to keep them sites. Cause you gotta,
Sure.
they haul leachate, which is water that drains down through
What is it
into
called?
wells, leachate.
Oh,
And then they haul that to Broadhead to run it through the sewer system.
oh, wow.
So and that will go on for eternity.
Yeah, I'm just still kind of pissed off they're trying to double the fee and then.
Well, a couple of the board members at the last meeting said that they are getting a lot of flack from the community
How could they
members.
not?
Well,
It seems like they ran their business into the ground and now they're going to all the municipalities to like bring it back up. And that seems like
well,
TV.
we were always told we had plenty of money in the contingency fund, but all of a sudden, the numbers didn't come around like they were supposed to. And all of a sudden, we had nothing. I mean, if we wanted to buy a new truck, we just told them, go and order it because we had the money.
Uh-huh.
Now, all of a sudden, shit, we don't have no money.
That comes.
And that's what happens when you operate on,
Financing and
yep.
all of that.
that's what happens when you operate ongoing expenses on surplus.
That little illustration right there that Roger just gave you
That's the sales thing.
underlies one of my kind of concerns about how we present ourselves, is that we don't have these reserve funds segregated as an item. I'm not saying it doesn't mean anything right now, but the problem, if you have a reserve and you have to have a motion to put money in, like we make, if we have a surplus at the end of this year, we transfer that to that reserve fund. And if we're gonna transfer it out, we do that. That gets through to that issue. What's happening here is you get reserves and they just keep moving them over. You should see what's going on with the library up in Belleville. They got a $90,000 deficit every year. They have some reserve funds that were supposed to go for construction, and they're just chomping at them. And 3 more years, and then what? I mean, it's a discipline, annoying admittedly, but it's a discipline that if you have to transfer it in and out, and this is not the year to get that solved. But one of these years, I'm gonna discover you have an extra 2.5 hours. And I'm going to come at you with a.
When you hire another employee in my office, I'll have 2.5 extra hours.
Okay,
All
well,
right,
go on, Lauren.
okay. Library, revenue and expenses are budgeted at 311,151. Property tax levy is at 211,000. That's an increase of 8%. County aid is at 76,000. That is a decrease from last year, but it's temporary. It will go back up. And just so you all know, village board does control the levy, but the library director completes and manages the budget under direction of the library board. And I've also,
That right there.
No.
That's really hard on people. I'm not saying you didn't have to do it or it's not the right thing to do it, but if you raise the rate, reduce the number of hours,
no, it was,
Yeah, no.
that's what it looks like.
I
Yeah.
looked at how many hours she worked normally, and we were budgeting more than she was working.
Yeah,
So
we
I
didn't
just
actually take any away.
Right
So
side,
it's a little cleaner than
yeah.
mine.
We just like cleaned up numbers. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
You're in a fog.
Any questions on the library budget?
Yeah.
Chalet revenue and expenses are budgeted at 12,124. The property tax levy is 9,324. Projected admission revenue is slightly up at 2,800. This does not include a construction loan that we pay, which is 4,410 a year.
Okay, the 12,000, well, so the 9,000 that went into there, that doesn't include the 4.
Correct. So that's an additional that we're paying on the debt side.
Mhm.
And that was for doing the roof.
And painting.
Okay, I have a question about the shed bay. Spoke to me, when you asked it,
I don't.
so the chalet just seems to be a thorn in everybody's side every time we talk about it. It's, we have to find this money every year. Would it make sense to consider doing the endowment, like we're doing for the cemetery, for the chalet? So that we do a one-time loan or we tack on to the cemetery loan. They can maybe not done together, I don't know, but maybe it can be. And then we do the same thing. We do an endowment for the chalet so that that interest will pay you know, those expenses every year for however long, ever. Is that a possibility?
It would be nice to have that like taken care of. The one thing that bothers me about the entire thing is the finger pointing and feeling of entitlement when the revenue is $2,800. That makes me crazy. So I would agree with that. I don't like that something like this is going on. And I'm fully supportive of what they're doing. But the members that I've talked to are really, you know, there's, the village needs to do this and the village needs to do that. And it drives me crazy because of the revenue that they're bringing in, and they're open 2 days a week. So I personally met with a bunch of them. And in the beginning, it was really bad, and now it seems to be getting better because I've listened to the complaints, but it still isn't done. It's not to the point where I could like walk into a board meeting, their meeting, and be like, hey, you guys really need to focus on making this business better. And then, you know, grow yourself.
But if they were open Monday through Friday, they wouldn't get anyone. If they wouldn't, the village
Then
doesn't
we
legit
have
busy
to staff.
until, yeah, and then they have to stand.
I mean, we have over time looked at different options. We looked at, becoming part of the National Historic Registry where they just take it over.
Yep.
We've talked about, giving the building, making the building responsible, or making the, Wisconsin Historical Society. We've looked at different options, but they weren't something that,
So
they were
Nobody
agreeable
wants
to.
expense.
They didn't want to lose that control. We talked about that numerous times.
who does control?
The people that, well,
The Friends of the
Friends.
Chalet.
the friends didn't want to have anyone have oversight except for, you know, their committed them.
Yeah.
So we have mentioned options in the past numerous times, but it never really.
I even talked to somebody about to the Swiss Historical Museum.
Yeah.
And they said they'd be willing to, you know, take it over there, but they don't want to do that.
Right.
So you have a group of people that aren't generating really any revenue. In fact, it's costing taxpayers money. They're not super helpful in finding a way to solve it. But I also do want, I mean, I like Jimmy's idea. We need to find a way to make it so they're not telling us all the stuff we need. Having people come to us and say we need to be weeding their flower beds is crazy.
You have to stop listening.
But I can't have, I don't think it's okay to have someone thinking they're owed something when we're putting money into it. We're actually taking our taxpayer money, putting it into this thing, and it's not doing anything besides having a bunch of people whine to us.
It's
Yeah.
been an ongoing.
Yeah, I tried for a long time to find a way, but they're not willing to do anything different besides now they're doing like videos and stuff and they're bringing more people in, which is great. But I think they're up like $400 this year or $200 from last year. So I just want that to be said. I'm all for doing what Jamie's talking about. I think it's a great idea. So that way that money is coming and it's going there. I'm just like, what happens when they need a furnace? We're going and buying a furnace and there's no like, I don't know, I just don't like it.
Well, maybe, what do you think, Lauren, about pitching to them again about becoming part of the National Historic Foundation so that they take that over? And I don't know what the application, I'm not sure how that works.
I thought there were all sorts of restrictions that the village had to own it.
Oh,
Yeah, there's,
And if the village doesn't own it, then all of it has to go to the historical society.
Yeah.
And it can no longer be a museum. So it's either the village keeps it and runs it, or it's done, it's
What do you-
gone.
Oh, and it no longer can be a museum, would
Right.
that be issue?
That's why I think,
Have to go.
that's why I thought it'd be great if the village is gonna continue to own it, to pick everything out of it. Find a way to generate the revenue or the money that we need to build a thing in the empty parking lot behind the Swiss Historical Museum. And that building can be used for whatever, and the property can be either sold or used for something. I know it's a, you know, historical property, but at least have that generating some sort of revenue or something. But they're not really interested in that.
Like a
can't
historical
separate 'em.
Airbnb?
Because when Edwin Barlow gave it to the village, he had all sorts of stipulations on it.
Yeah, it looked like, we can, after the 30-year mark, we can do whatever we want.
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah, but they don't want to do that. So I guess my feelings with the thing with Jamie is that if we do that, that's great, but at some point we have to say, here's the money. Run your museum, but you need to generate your own revenue to do anything above what we're supplying to you. Or ask the entire village and say, hey, this is what we're doing. What do you guys think about this?
But I also think we're not saying we have to find $50,000 a year. We're trying to find 12. I mean, it is a draw to a small draw, but it's a draw to the village, does add something, has value. They are trying. Like, it's not, it's not a huge expense for us other than it's annoying and they don't make any revenue. Like
I don't want it to go away. I just want them to understand what this is. This is not something that you're owed.
I think something like what Jesse's hitting on that's not on this slide, and I, from a staff perspective, have to add it in, is that the money is one thing, but we're spending a lot more money than what's on the slide because we send staff up there. And it's not that we shouldn't, because it's a village-owned building, so we should, but to Jesse's point, we have a very small staff and our to-do list grows by 500 things every single day. So when we have an extremely high priority item that we have to get done, like a budget, and we are getting the feeling that,
It's not appreciated.
this has to be above everything else. And I think that relationship is getting better. But I will say, like, that is hard on our staff because we kind of get this flack when we do help out that it's not like it's not good. It's never, I don't know. We're trying to improve the relationship. I think the relationship has gotten better, but I do think there has to be some understanding that while this is a priority of the village, it is almost always not going to be the number one priority because of everything else on our plates.
have we set those parameters with
We
the
have-
Friends of the Chalet? Like, who's their direct person they go to in the village?
The paid staff at Chick-fil-A is Mary's staff.
We don't really ever
Would
talk
she-
to Mary,
they-
ever.
Yeah, that's another thing. We're paying her and there was no communication from her. And we created I don't know how many years ago, Peg, do you remember when we formed the Friends of the Chalet?
No,
I mean, that was supposed to help get this thing going and raise some money to
Right.
do it. And they could be sitting on $100,000. We don't know.
They have to
Well,
go
we do get financial, we
They
get
told you?
financial information from them every month now. I did start requesting that.
Okay.
And we have had conversations. Sandy Bloom is our usual contact for the chalet. And like I said, Lauren and I have worked really hard along with our other staff to improve that relationship. And I think it's on the right path. But I do think from a board perspective, if those concerns come to you, I mean, just understanding like on this side of things, like, yes, we understand it is the village's responsibility, but like picking up the pile of sticks, yes, it'll get done, but it may not be like the number one thing on our list today. And that just has to be understood. And it also has to be understood that when we have expenses to be fixed up there, a lot of times it's like, oh, well, the village should fix it. It's the village's building. But then when the village has ideas about like, hey, could we get some help out paying for this? They're like, nope, we're, so there has to be
always-
some,
It's always been
Yeah.
like, it's always.
and I think it's
there-
getting better, but I think it should be noted as well.
One of the things that I have, it's always struggled with is that, yes, the building itself is historic.
Mhm.
I'm probably gonna go on record for this, but the items inside,
Or
Are
eclectic. They're eclectic.
they're just
Yeah.
eclectic random.
And some of
They're very cool. They're
Necessarily
very cool.
related, and it's very cool. I have been to Pennsylvania where a lot of the historical buildings, not, I shouldn't say a lot, the historical buildings, and we stayed in one, have been used as Airbnbs to support the village and people will pay good money to stay in those. Now, that requires a lot of,
Right.
front loading on your part to be able to do that. But on the other hand, I'm not sure where it goes because it continues to be more of a financial burden than it does a tourist interest.
But So the chamber, less than a year ago, did this massive tourism research project.
Mhm.
We surveyed visitors, we surveyed residents, we surveyed business owners. And one of the two biggest draws to the village are the brewery and the Swissness of it, the architecture, the food, the festivals, all that stuff. And the really interesting thing is that it was like 75 or 80% of the people who decided to come to New Glarus chose to come here because of the Swissness, because of the architecture and the beauty and the pictures. But once they were here, like maybe 40% of them actually did something Swiss. So on one hand, there's work to be done, you know, to get them to do more. But on the other hand, you don't want to get rid of the things that are pulling people in. And that's one of them. That's one of the things that legitimizes us as a Swiss destination. That and the historical village, the Swiss Center, the festivals, like you don't want to just
Right.
dump.
I just think it's a communication thing. I don't
Yeah.
think on the staff side, we're saying we want to get rid of it. I think
Yeah.
it's just communication
Yeah.
and better understanding.
And the last thing I will say, and then I'll stop talking, is I want it to exist. I just want it to have, I want there to be people there that are working towards a common goal, which would be to make it better, not to blame other people for what their issues are.
Is it possible to connect that with the Swiss Village and make the ticket sales part of it?
Yeah.
They already did that.
They just-
Yeah, so that's been successful. They just started that this year.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we had a good conversation when we went over the budget with Sandy about some possible ideas. We were gonna apply for a grant to do some exterior work. They usually get a grant every year to fix up something inside, like, or something that has historical, what did they do? Like painting shut? No, they did wallpaper last year.
Wallpaper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think there's some good ideas brewing. I just think that communication where everybody's on the same page and understanding that, yes, it's a village priority, but it is not the top priority. That has been the pain point. When you talked about, you know, it's a thorn, I would say on the staff side, that's where it's the thorn, is that not understanding of how much village staff is tasked with. And, you know, where in the priority list those things fall.
Yeah.
And then maybe Mary Stats, she's our employee.
Yes.
And, yes.
Which I received no communication. from
Yeah.
her, So that's another thing to, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think too, the point of like a main contact, for a while, it's been me, and that's taken a lot of my
Mhm.
time, and I think, you know, maybe appointing a public works staff person to be the main contact will help reduce my time, because it's often like, can you please empty our yard, please? And so then I would be like, hey, Joe, can you please, it was like adding time for us.
Well, and also that thing that we talked about at the parks meeting, having a schedule that like the either weeding or all the stuff that's going on needs to be hit. They need to hit each place. And if they do that, I think some of those complaints will go away.
Yeah.
Not constant weekly weeding, but you know,
Right.
something.
And then also just understanding the flexibility piece of that, like, yep, this is our schedule, this is our hope, but when X, Y, and Z pops up, that will take precedence. So instead of it getting done on Wednesday, it might not be till Friday. And not, I mean, I think on the staff side, we really need that, like, breathing room a little bit.
Eventually, I'm gonna go to one of their meetings. But it's like this, at first I'm like super excited, everything's going well, and then I talk to people and it's like here. So.
They have a wine walk coming up, so that's exciting.
Yeah,
It's
I
a
have
big
4 tickets
fundraiser
to
for
it.
the
I heard
friends.
you guys got 3 ones and you wanna go.
I can't at soccer.
Oh, are you playing?
No. Oh, God, I break my hip.
Okay.
So
Alright.
Amy, would you like Lauren to try to check on
I mean, do we think that's a good option?
We don't have the debt
What does the
capacity.
king of endowments think?
I guess we could use surplus.
What, huh?
What do you think about the endowment for our chalet?
Well, it's got, one is interest rates are pointed down right now, which is a plus. And, so, you know, not rushing into it, I think we could do it less expensively. The second thing is, once you get an endowment like that, you'll find people who say, oh, I want to help that. And they're not real comfortable writing a check over here because it's gonna go for, you know, petroleum or something. They're much more comfortable putting it into the endowment, because then they know they go as a permanency. So and you can also have campaigns that.
Yep.
And they don't have to be very elaborate. you know,
Use that as a
supplement.
fundraising tool.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that would, that might be one of the things you want to do, is give them base stuff, and if they want to go beyond that, then they have to figure out how to get the community support, but do it on a long-term basis. That is the endowment, the 4%, you know, all that.
I will add, all the donations that go to the chalet go to the Friends, not the village. And that is another,
Well,
The issue with that is the Friends have maintained their position that their money is to be spent on marketing. And everything else falls to the village. And I understand on paper, what, but like at the same time, you know, when they want new benches or and I understand why, but like that immediately is like, oh, nope, that's the village's, and the village does not have money to spend that. I mean, they are over budget.
Do they
this
give us
year,
a report
and
on
that's
how much they get?
Yes, they do now. So they have about $12,000 to $13,000. Not a lot of money. I'm not saying they should be funding the chalet with that. And I think we've had this discussion with Sandy about like, hey, if we want to keep doing these little projects, like new flower boxes and you know, benches on the schedule that they want them done on, like the Friends are going to have to contribute or admissions are going to have to go up because we just don't have money. I know this sounds funny because we have that surplus, but we don't have the money when we have other things that need attention, if that makes sense. Among a million other things,
Or,
yes. Yeah, so I think there's good conversation started, but I think it always helps when our board is all on the same page too with staff and really knows what the staff needs from that relationship.
So we have to revisit the Mary Stats thing, and we have to, you want to look into doing the endowment thing.
I would like to, yeah.
Yeah, and which I also think is a good idea as well. And there also needs to be a point where one of us talks to them and says, hey, this is what we want to do. But
We've also talked to Sandy about having her or somebody from the chalet come to a village board meeting twice a year, like once at the beginning of their season and once at the end to give updates, but also to have these kind of conversations because I really think communication is the problem.
that's why I want to put them.
Yeah, so I think, but I think having the whole board have that opportunity to ask questions and vice versa would be helpful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on. This is almost over, I promise. Debt service fund. This is the fund that pays our debts. This is exempt from levy limits. So really, when you're looking at, you know, how much additional you want to borrow, you should be looking at our policies related to limits on debt. So in 2024, the village's equalized value is $318 million. 5%, which is the statutory limit, is 15.9 million. And then our village policy is 75% of that 5%, which is 11.9 million. And our total outstanding GO debt principal is 6.5 million. So we're well below our policy on debt. So our debt service levy, this should say 25, I'm sorry. Is set at 696. That's a decrease of $6,000. This decrease is due to a smaller borrow in 2024 for the Candy Cane Parks playground and Vets Park fencing. The expenses in this fund will be impacted by the recently approved capital improvement plan. And then lastly, we have the capital projects, Fund 60. This was approved at the last meeting. So here's a list of the 2025 projects that were approved. We have a cemetery endowment, police department roof, police squad car replacement, and 11th Ave engineering for a total of $407,000 of borrowing. This impacts the 2026 debt service levy. So really no impact to 25 budget, but obviously we'll be completing those projects next year. So it's good to know what we'll be borrowing.
What's the cost of that? Go back one. What are you assuming for rate?
That's just
That's
actual
just how much
cost.
we're borrowing.
Yep, that's not including,
No, I understand that, but what are you assuming for rate? Go ahead. You don't,
I'm
I'm not sure.
haven't thought about that.
no.
I will, our
Yeah.
financial advisor did, but I have not.
Okay.
So are we looking at bonding for that or just a?
Just a
Probably a
loan?
borrow, yeah,
Yeah.
bank
Bank,
loan.
yeah.
Unless for some reason a
You know,
bond is.
have you considered, now we get back to that discussion about reserves and transferring money in and knowing what the balance is.
Mhm.
That's the kind of balance that we ought to seriously consider paying cash.
Mhm.
We could
And
do
if we-
that.
and if we did that segregation, we'd know whether that was a reasonable or an unreasonable thing. Right now, we don't have a way to evaluate that.
Well, we know how much our surplus is
Right.
based off of our audit. So we can get that number for you.
Yeah, like a couple, like the police car, and a couple, I wouldn't finance those.
Yeah.
That's where that, somewhere in here, I saw the right statement about things like one-time revenue opportunities to one-time purchases. Well, the police
Right,
car fits that to a T. And the one-time revenue thing is the high rate we're earning on our deposits at this point.
Keep in mind though, in 2026, we're
Mhm.
gonna have a huge borrow. And that is gonna bring the debt service levy up high. And so do we want it to go from here to here, or do we want it to go from
Right.
here to here?
Now you're talking psychology of the, and that's different than finance. So I'll leave the psychology, I mean, I understand what you're saying. You don't
Yeah,
want to
right.
jolt the taxpayers.
Yes.
On the other hand, what they really want to know is that you're using their money appropriately.
I also think there's, like, if the board feels strongly about paying for the squad car with surplus funds rather than financing something like that, because we all know vehicles do not have a shelf life, especially a police car, and would rather put something else in there. I mean, we have a laundry list of projects that we would like to do. That could be a conversation too, but that would be something that was on that
Let's
CIP we
just hold
decided.
this until we figure out what's going on with the library. Another couple of weeks,
Yeah,
we're gonna know a lot more about.
We're not gonna be doing this borrow until 2025,
no.
so we've got
Well,
time.
I got all that, but this capital plan that we're talking about.
Right.
Has got to take into account the realities of what goes on with the library.
Yes, we will likely revisit if the library does not get the grant.
So if I waive it, you like this?
And I will say too, what we are borrowing next year is, I have to know this information by like the end of November because I have to file reports with the state for this. So this isn't a decision that we can be like, oh, we're gonna
Go back to the
400,000.
beginning. What was that?
So we levy for debt service payments, right? And we also levy in our budget.
Oh, I
So
see.
we,
Okay.
yeah, so we
Okay.
just need to make sure we're not levying a certain amount and then deciding, oh, we're not gonna do that
Well,
anymore.
this won't impact the levy, but
Right.
it'll impact
Well, and-
budget numbers.
Right,
How
but it-
much we're gonna spend on capital.
right, and
projects.
yeah, and it would impact the levy in terms of like you talked about, the spike.
Right.
Like the debt service levy is gonna go way down then.
Is that notice, is that fixed or is that just a notice kind of thing?
What do you mean?
Well, are you bound by it? You couldn't exceed it or or?
The debt service levy?
Decrease, what?
The debt service levy, you mean, or the capital projects?
There's notice you said you have to give. them.
Oh, that's just my levy worksheet, levy limit worksheet that I have to file with the state. But just thinking about,
That's informational as opposed to binding, right?
It is binding.
it's binding.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, yep,
How weird is that?
We have to set our property
Yeah.
taxes
Yeah.
before.
Oh, for that purpose.
right,
I
right,
understand.
right.
Okay, I'm sorry. Got it.
Just a quick breakdown of, I mentioned this already, but here's how our property tax levy is broken up. General fund and debt service are the biggest users of property tax dollars. Library coming in at third. All right, next steps. October 15th will be our second budget workshop that will focus on utility budgets and all of our other funds. We will make updates to the budget based off of any actions or input from the village board tonight. Public hearing will be on November 6th and then hopefully budget adoption on November 19th.
And also please note, there's a few numbers in the general fund that we haven't gotten yet. Like I actually got insurance late on Friday. So that could change slightly too. So it could be actually a little bit less of surplus that we'd have to apply. But you'd see all those changes at the final adoption.
Can we ask some questions about things in the budget?
Yes.
I just am trying to understand some of the numbers, so I'm just gonna ask a few questions. Under expenses, street admin salaries went up by 11,000.
Yes, okay, that's a good thing to highlight here. So we did a little tweaking on salaries for public works staff because as you can see, all the red crossouts, they were broken up into several different line items. So we had machine and equipment, street construction, snow removal, sign,
No.
dump, floral clock, parks, recreation. Salaries were broken up into all those different areas and we would budget a certain amount and then staff would put on their timesheet whatever they actually worked and they weren't matching up.
Okay,
So the idea is we're putting it all into one line. We're not having them break it out in their timesheets anymore because it was a waste of time for them.
And not having
and
me in a
it's-
big break.
doesn't look good in the budget either, because we're always off.
Yeah.
So that's why street admin is going up, because we put all of Scott's wage in street admin, and then all of
Maintenance and
public works.
construction went way up.
Yep, public works went into yeah, that one.
Okay. Okay, that makes total sense. I think
That is, it also went up because, it's not utilities anymore. The public works director only oversees wastewater and streets. So it used to be covered some with water and electric. It still is, but not as much.
is that whole salary thing also why the park salaries number is 5 times higher this year?
Parks and Recreation was a little wonky. Basically, to go back to what Lauren was alluding to, and this is another reason why we're going to electronic timesheets too, but employees would have to code all this time, and they code it to places that we didn't budget it in, so it'd go to a different budgeted line.
Gotcha.
So that, we are cleaning it up for next year, so.
This is like right sizing your budget.
Exactly,
Okay.
this is not like giving Parks LT a $20 increase.
No, everyone got a 3%
Yep.
increase.
Yep.
What's the general recreation general ops line?
Yep, so that used to be the Recreation Little League Girl, the one that's crossed off below. We put stuff there, but I just moved it from there up because it makes more sense to me to have it in Recreation Gen Ops since we have multiple leagues. That $9,000 is what we budgeted last year. We went over budget a bit this year because we had a change in park directors and, there was a lot of equipment that we had to have, that we didn't have anymore. So we spent a lot of money replacing equipment and getting new equipment. But next year I anticipate that cost to go down quite a bit,
It was equipment that we thought was ours, but then they said, no, this is actually the school's.
or just, we don't know where it's at. I don't know. Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Where the guy is.
So anyways, Megan did an amazing job this year. We have amazing equipment. It's very organized. I anticipate next year we are not gonna have to do that. The other thing to know with that though is our ball field sign program made more than double of the revenue that we projected.
That was super impressive.
Yeah, so that helps make up those differences in the park and recreation.
Okay, now we have 2 more.
Oh, you know.
Okay, so this might be the controversial one. Okay, the floral clock,
Mm-hmm,
so it's $5,600 a year.
mm-hmm,
So we just had a 35-minute conversation about a $12,000 budget for the chalet,
mm-hmm,
and we are paying $5,600 a year for that.
mm-hmm.
Like,
Why?
It's for the flowers and then we pay Brenda's to do
Plant it.
do it.
It used to
Naturally
be-
grow back.
No,
Not those.
no.
oh, but we looked at,
It's gone.
We've actually inquired about perennials versus annuals and you can't get the vibrant, I'm not, but you can't get the right colors. I don't know.
Well.
Peggy would know this, yeah.
This was an issue before, when the Collins used to do it, and it was $5,000.
Mhm.
And then I was like, $5,000, and they had a lot of perennials in there. And the perennials obviously have a shelf life in the season, and then they just look dried up, and so it was annuals, and the design that you see there has been around forever, so it's very intricate. You have to draw, you have to have strings, and it takes a couple of days to actually plant that clock. But I always thought it was 5. Did we increase it now to 56?
No, we had to, let me get one.
I mean, I understand keeping the money in the village and having Brenda do it, but have we priced it out to anybody else? Like that just, when we're having these conversations, it's hilarious to me, like,
Right.
we're
did.
literally trying to figure out the chalet for pretty much double that,
Mhm.
but we have no problem with the.
And it's been 5,000 as long as I can remember.
I think it is still 5,000. We
You did-
budget
you did-
additional funds for like repairs and maintenance type
Okay.
of things there.
But it's been 5,000, I think it's been 5,000.
We bumped it up, so True Green, we also spray the floral clock and that's expensive. We spray the
then,
True
uh,
Green, so that's part of that
We
$600.
tried the volunteer option and years ago, that didn't work.
You know that tonight, you know that form play stuff?
The what?
We make a design and form play with the clock is and forget with the flowers.
Omega
There
what?
might, I mean, you
What did
might
you say?
want to go out
The
the
board,
board.
like the playground.
Make a design.
Oh, I thought you said something completely different.
What did you,
Nothing.
I don't want to
The
know.
foreign play,
So
yeah.
do we not do a design that lasts all year round? That isn't,
It doesn't last all year round, just seasonal.
yeah, I know.
Or can we reach out to maybe Perfection? I mean, I know they're in Monticello, but they're
I don't-
close, like price wise, or maybe we could reach out to someone that would come in and do it and donate it, and we could put a little plaque with their name, you know what I mean? Like,
I mean, I think we already get a deal on the
The
flowers.
difference is who's paying real estate taxes.
yeah, I get that.
And the other
Yeah.
thing is that,
I see nothing of the great view as I step out for coffee from the cat.
the other thing is
I'm not arguing with that. I just think,
Subsidizing, that's what we're subsidizing.
I think within all these conversations,
I-
it's
you're
hilarious,
right on
those
the
are the
money.
numbers.
the other thing is the weeding that it's just close
Yeah.
by. You can
Mhm.
just walk right over. I'm not saying that, that's the avenue to go, but there is a lot of maintenance involved, whether or not you think, I do some of it, not all of it.
I would say the floral clock is similar to the chalet in terms of it's a unique thing that somebody got married next to it this year.
Yeah.
So that's kind of
We
cool.
just- we-
I'm not saying, I understand where you're coming from, but this is just another traditional
I mean,
thing that we have always done. Doesn't mean we should keep doing it, but that's.
And I'm not saying we shouldn't, like, I think I fully agree. I mean, I live in a house that people take pictures in front of because it looks like a chalet. Like, I understand the Swissness 100%. I don't think we should take it away, but it just, in relation to other
Yeah.
costs, like,
Yeah.
we don't bat an eye at
Yeah.
that one and, it's
Yeah,
just a
yeah.
weird,
Yeah.
okay.
And it is something that you can look at.
I wouldn't want to take it away from Brenda's and have somebody else doing the flowers, because it's kind of a slap in her face, and she does a good job of all the stuff she does here. The only thing I was offering up is a different thing, other than something that's to be serviced all year round.
Right.
Something else around the clock that's not gonna die, and literally taking money and throwing it in her pile.
I mean, I don't think foreplay is the answer.
That sounds awesome.
But
Who came up with that?
statue or
That's a great idea.
Okay.
There might be other options, I
Yeah.
don't know, besides flowers that are less maintenance, or permanent.
Say
I
it.
mean, that's something to look at.
Nothing outside is permanent.
Scott, being we're talking
I'm
about
talking
floral
cement.
clock, you're aware that there's a sprinkler system down there?
Red.
Okay, there's a sprinkler system down there that you're gonna have to blow out this fall.
Yeah.
I think the boys know about it, but just kind of keep that in the
Even
back of your
cement
mind.
is not permanent.
And we just
And
fixed
we
it
know.
last year, so it should be
Roads,
good to go.
Oh,
Page 115. Property insurance. Second line from the
I
bottom,
told you he was gonna look at
44,000 for this year.
Yeah, no, okay, so property insurance, that is the actual, but it's because I don't break it out until I get all of the bills in, so I only have to do the break ones. I know I can do it differently and I should do it differently, and I will. It just, time-wise, it just works out easier for me, like, once I get all of the bills, then I distribute it to the library and to utilities and to this and to that. So, don't look at the actual, just look at
That's
the,
okay.
yeah.
But what, I don't know what the total is this year.
Right, so you look at the year.
44,000 for last, and now it's 16.
No. 44,000 is the actual where it was sitting when I ran this report because I haven't distributed that expense. Our year-end estimate is 16,000. We budgeted 16,000. Last year, the actual was only actually 8,000. And the difference this year is we had to get some flood insurance too, which was expensive, and that was part of our USDA
So
loan.
you're saying that 44,000 it needs to be divvied out? to-
Yes,
It will
yeah.
not be that high.
I told Lauren, I'm like, I know that they're gonna notice this.
But what I want to know is what's the undivvied amount, the total amount?
16,000.
No, because if you took the 44 and then divided among other things,
It's
pull
in
it
the
all back together, and what is the number?
16,000.
Okay, start.
The general fund portion you're asking, or what's the total cost of insurance?
I want to know what's the equivalent of the 44,000 for next year.
Oh,
It's what we're
Well, you
budgeting.
said you got this in here, then you divide it up, right?
I haven't, yeah, I will. I haven't done it yet.
Okay,
yes.
good. So I want to know what number would be 2025 before you've divided it all up. 16 isn't the number.
Yep, so we estimated a 10% increase on all insurance, and then I got, the numbers from our insurance agent late last Friday, and it was about, this is still kind of a crystal ball thing, because he said he doesn't know for sure, a 6% increase, which is why I said when I get that updated in here, it'll actually help these numbers. So
We can probably count ourselves blessed if that's the case. This insurance thing is going to go off the wall.
I'm,
You know how many, and then just in this state, we used to have 115 farm co-op things,
Yep.
we're down to 9.
Yeah, so this is a large.
For them to consolidate that thing.
This is a large reason that we switched to the League of Wisconsin Insurance. They work specifically with municipalities, and have a they really keyed in on municipal insurance, much better than
Start that sentence over again.
a couple years ago. We switched from, M3 Insurance to the League of Wisconsin Municipalities, who
Okay.
only does
Okay.
insurance for Wisconsin
It may
municipalities.
be that because we're not, because of the nature of our buildings and all that, that we will have minor increases. But residential stuff is,
Yeah,
That's why
residential, yeah, that's completely.
okay,
Yes.
all right, so you're thinking if you said 10%?
I budgeted at 10% and had
So
everybody
this number
else.
For all of us is like 48,000.
Yes, but now our insurance guy came back and said it should be closer to a 6, but he doesn't know for sure.
Okay. So that would be, okay, got it. Okay,
Yeah.
so 16 is a piece of the number, the whole number is gonna be a little more than 44,000.
Right.
6%.
For next year,
Yeah,
yes.
fine, good, okay, that's it.
I did have a question on the nuclear home. I know the pilot is
Yep.
36. What did we increase it to?
Yep,
I'm
so
trying to
that-
find it.
Yep, so that's at the top under NG home. It's right under property taxes on page 112. So you'll notice that, this year, we're estimating, we'll get a payment of $37,000. It's all based on, like mill rate, equalized value. It's not something I know until the very end of our budget process. So I basically have to guess at this point. Obviously 39 is probably very conservative.
Yeah.
We had a big jump last year because we did a reval in the village.
Mhm.
So you'll notice that, but I'm hoping it'll be more than 39, but 39 is my number I'm sticking with for right now.
So, and why did you do that?
They don't pay taxes. So this was we set up this contract when they built the duplexes, I think, a long time ago. Because village services are used out there, but they don't pay anything towards them. So this was a contract they agreed to, that's based on, every year we redo the formula to make sure it's accurate. They cut us a check at the end, and I give them actually a year notice every single year. So they'll get their 2025 notice next month.
So is it all their land or just the duplex land?
No, all of it. This
The whole
tax.
campus.
So it's definitely a deal for them in terms of what they would pay in property tax. And for us, it's better than nothing.
I was there 2 weeks ago and I got lost right away.
Jane?
Yeah, I have one more thing. And at first I want to say I was gonna bring this up before I knew we had surplus, so I promise that this is gonna be a conversation anyway. So and Amy, I'm sorry, I'm gonna talk about you in your room, but you're always in the room. It's okay. So a few weeks ago, Daniel Ramirez, Lauren and I met to talk about salaries in the library. So when we looked at that 3%, what was that quote, Lauren, the 8?
The,
Where it showed the,
it was a compensation study
Yes.
that Belleville completed that showed 12 municipalities and kind of aggregated that data.
and it gave the kind of the 3 ranges of a salary, min, mid, and max. And when we were looking at that, I was realizing Amy and 2 of her staff are below the min, like severely below the min.
So,
We met-
man.
Yeah.
why not?
Yes,
Minimal.
below minimal, yes.
I'm not, I couldn't agree more.
I know. So we met and kind of figured out if we got if we got the 3 of them close to the mid, including benefits, it would be 38,000, I think. I don't remember the breakout, but that is what we need to do that. And so I would love, when we talk about the budget, for us to figure out, even if we can't do the 38, like what can we do to right size? Because, I mean, I think it's glaringly, when you look at all the village salaries, like those 3 jump out at me. Amy's jumps out at me specifically. But we're also asking this library director to potentially administer a $4 million grant and a building and all of these things. Like, I think this is the time, and I get if we do it this year, we have to find money going forward. So I'm not saying, hey, let's use 38,000 in the surplus, but I would love to just put it on the table that we try to figure out something when we're looking at this.
So you're talking 38,000 to finance the different.
The
various
3 salaries, yeah, to increase the 3 salaries and pay the benefits on them.
Coincidentally, that's close to the number it takes the operating costs of the new building.
Yes, it is. You are not wrong.
So you just double it up.
Yes, I did.
Okay,
Do you have ideas on where to take it from?
Sure don't. Well, the library budget is super tight, so we looked at that. And I don't know if it's doable, but I think it's a conversation that we need to have and look at, especially if we do have some other areas. And so again, like things like the floral clock, you know what I mean? Like, just make me want to have that conversation more. So I just wanna bring it to the.
Well, you start us in the right direction, a couple of subjects ago, you know, and then we, things like that. The problem is none of these things look like they're gonna solve the problem. And there isn't
Right.
one thing that solves the problem. It's incremental.
Yep.
You're gonna get another 10 or 15% out of fees, and you're gonna get, you know, et cetera, et cetera. You really have, you're down in the weeds,
Yes.
but that's how it's gonna be solved. But there is, between you and I and the lamppost, a big issue sitting out there for the library, and that's whether it's a setting up and endowment. Big damn deal. I mean, if the problem is difficult now, and you build according to the proposal that you made to the state, the problem is gonna double.
Sure. I mean, I think I get.
And then
what you're saying.
I'm gonna have to cut my throat.
No, it's not mine.
Then-
I do want to mention, like, Amy, I know that you, like, this is not at all driven by anybody in the library. It's not driven by Amy, Daniel, like, I approach them. I think this is something the board needs to do to right size these salaries. And I think when you ask Amy, she'll say, I really only care about my 2 staff members, and I appreciate that, but I also think like, that's not good governance on our part, so. Just want to bring it up, put it out there. And I don't want to spend all the surplus.
Trouble all meeting.
I know, I came with a whole list of questions.
That's my job. Jesus Christ.
Next meeting, not next, it'll be near one of these, but.
So has anybody got any more questions or comments about the workshop?
Thank you for all the work.
Whole list.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm impressed.
I'll buy you a wine at the wine walk that you're not going to.
Okay, moving on then, Parks and Recreation, consideration, discussion, and resolution 2423 to establish a 2025 schedule of fees for use of New Glarus parks and swimming pool.
Speaking of fees,
Or not.
this was recommended by the Parks and Rec Committee for approval. This would increase swimming lesson fees and birthday bubble fees. Happy to answer questions on it. I think the increases are minimal and are within, still probably lower than many areas, swimming lessons. Also, our swimming lessons fill up so fast, so there is a high demand for them.
And they're a tiny percentage in comparison to actual swimming lessons that I pay for my kids to go to.
I move to approve resolution 2423.
Second,
Any further discussion?
no,
Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item 7, Public Works and Public Safety, consideration, discussion, ordinance 2412 to amend section 265-9 municipal code of the Village of New Glarus, general street design standards.
Is the last page of the packet. This was also recommended by the Public Works and Public Safety Committee. This would update the requirement for local/minor streets for right-of-way. It's currently at 60. Our engineer recommends 66 feet with a roadway width of not less than 32 feet. This is important to get updated before we start reviewing subdivision concepts to make sure that we're getting enough right-of-way that we need.
This would just be with things like that are
New.
new. Okay.
Yes.
How is this going to affect 11th Avenue?
It won't. It's for new roads.
just for new builds.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's to establish how much right of way we need when a new road goes, in, or a new subdivision. Well,
That's
when
a
you're-
remodel.
When
really.
you're drawing out roads in a subdivision, it's deciding how wide you want the right of way to be.
Mhm.
We can't affect how wide the right of way is in your street.
I know the reality.
Nobody cares about a lot of.
I thought that the general premise was don't widen roads because it just, people drive faster. Keep them narrow within reason, but keep them narrow so they don't drive fast.
Yes, that is,
Is that
but
what this does?
this is widening the right of way, not the road.
On the side of the
The
road.
whole gate?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
We need a motion.
I will move to approve.
Good job.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed,
Yeah.
motion carries.
I'm putting an asterisk by that one, your first one.
Anything else from the board?
No.
Hearing none, we are adjourned.
Gonna bring Marcia.